Maple Street, a picture of quiet charm. Houses stood proud, bathed in the golden glow of history. The air was sweet with the scent of maples, their leaves turning to hues of fire. It was a place where time seemed to move slower, a haven from the rush of the world. But beneath the peaceful facade, Maple Street held secrets. Whispers of the past lingered in the shadows. Evelyn Harrow had lived on Maple Street for most of her life. She remembered a time when children played freely on the sidewalks. Their laughter had echoed through the old trees. Now the street was quiet, most of the houses occupied by those who, like Evelyn, held on to the memories of a bygone era. Evelyn found solace in her routines, in tending her garden, and in the quiet evenings spent with a good book. But beneath the calm surface, a sense of unease was growing. It had begun with a strange feeling, a prickling at the back of her neck whenever she walked past the old McAllister house. One crisp autumn afternoon, Evelyn found herself drawn to an estate sale. The house, a grand Victorian with peeling paint, was being emptied after its last occupant passed. Evelyn, ever curious, wandered through rooms crowded with forgotten treasures. She ran a hand over a dusty mantel clock, its hands frozen in time. It was like stepping into another era. It was in a dimly lit corner, amid stacks of dusty books and chipped china, that Evelyn discovered it. An antique music box, its wooden exterior inlaid with mother of pearl, lay nestled in a bed of yellowed velvet. Evelyn, captivated by its intricate design, carefully lifted it. The music box was heavier than she expected. Its brass fittings were tarnished, but beneath the grime a delicate beauty remained. She traced the outline of a single crimson rose etched onto its surface. It seemed to pulse faintly beneath her fingertips, as though the box itself held a breath held for centuries. Evelyn purchased the music box without hesitation, drawn to its melancholic beauty. She carried it home, her heart filled with a strange mix of anticipation and unease. Little did she know she was carrying home a piece of Maple Street's troubled past. Later that evening, as a fire crackled in the hearth, the room was bathed in a warm golden glow. The shadows danced on the walls, creating an almost hypnotic effect. Evelyn sat down to examine her new acquisition. The music box felt cool beneath her touch, its intricate carvings catching the flickering light. She marvelled at the craftsmanship, wondering about the hands that had created such a delicate piece. It was as if the chill of autumn had seeped into its very core. The air outside was crisp, the leaves a tapestry of reds and golds, but inside the music box seemed to hold on to the cold. With a slow, deliberate turn of the key, the mechanism whirred to life. Each click of the winding keys seemed to echo in the quiet room, building anticipation. A faint, sweet melody filled the room. The notes were delicate, almost fragile, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to float in the air. The tune was both beautiful and melancholic, a waltz that seemed to speak of a forgotten love and a lingering sorrow. It was as if the music itself held memories, whispering secrets of the past. Evelyn closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. She could almost see the grand ballroom, the elegant dancers moving gracefully under the soft glow of chandeliers. It was as though she were being transported back in time to a grand ballroom lit by flickering gaslight. The air was filled with the scent of perfume and the soft rustle of silk gowns. As the music played, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. The room seemed to grow colder, and she felt a presence, as if someone or something was watching her. A cold draught seemed to snake through the room, raising goosebumps on her skin. The warmth of the fire was no longer enough to chase away the chill that had settled in. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filled the air, a stark contrast to the warmth of the fire. It was as if the outside world had intruded into her sanctuary. It was as though the music box had opened a door, letting something in from the outside. The boundary between the past and present seemed to blur. The melody ended abruptly, the last note hanging in the air like a whispered secret. Evelyn's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding in her chest. The fire had dimmed, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. The room felt different, as if it had been touched by something unseen. A shiver ran down her spine. The once comforting room now felt ominous, filled with an unsettling silence. The music box, once a source of fascination, now filled her with a growing sense of dread. She couldn't help but wonder what she had unleashed. The nights that followed were far from peaceful. The once serene atmosphere of Maple Street had turned into a realm of unease and dread. Evelyn was plagued by nightmares, vivid and disturbing dreams that left her gasping for air in the cold sweat of pre-dawn. Each night the dreams grew more intense, more real, as if they were trying to convey a message she couldn't quite grasp. In her dreams, a woman with sorrowful eyes and a voice like rustling leaves whispered her name, always just out of reach. The whispers were haunting, filled with a sorrow that seemed to echo through the corridors of her mind. Each time the music box played its haunting tune, the air grew heavy, laden with a palpable sense of dread. Objects moved inexplicably, as if guided by unseen hands, adding to the growing sense of unease that permeated the house. Doors creaked open on their own, revealing only darkness beyond. The creaking sound echoed through the empty hallways, a chilling reminder of the unseen forces at play. Evelyn would find herself staring into the shadows, her heart pounding in her chest, a cold sweat clinging to her skin. The darkness seemed to pulse with a life of its own, drawing her gaze and filling her with an inexplicable terror. The once familiar sounds of her old house, the settling of floorboards, the ticking of the grandfather clock, now sent shivers down her spine. These sounds, once comforting, had transformed into ominous portents of the unknown. They were no longer comforting reminders of the home she knew, but whispers in the darkness, hinting at unseen presences lurking just beyond the veil of perception. Every creak, every tick seemed to carry a hidden message, a warning of things to come. Fear, cold and insidious, began to seep into Evelyn's bones. It was a fear that went beyond the rationale, a primal terror that gnawed at her very soul. She felt a constant unease, a feeling of being watched, of being judged by something unseen. The sensation was relentless, a shadow that followed her every move, never allowing her a moment of peace. Her once peaceful home had become a prison of her own making, haunted by the melody of the antique music box and the secrets it seemed to hold. The music box, with its haunting tune, was a constant reminder of the mysteries that lay hidden within the walls of her home, mysteries that were slowly driving her to the brink of madness. One morning Evelyn confided in her neighbour George. George, a widower with kind eyes and a quiet demeanour, had always been a comforting presence on Maple Street. He was the kind of neighbour who always had a warm smile and a kind word, someone who made you feel safe just by being around. He listened patiently as Evelyn recounted the strange occurrences, his brow furrowed with concern. George had a way of making people feel heard, and Evelyn found herself pouring out her worries to him, feeling a sense of relief as she did. "It's the music box, George," Evelyn confided, her voice trembling. She had found it in the attic, a relic from a bygone era, and ever since, strange things had been happening in her home. "It's like it's brought something dreadful into my home." The once peaceful nights were now filled with eerie sounds, and shadows seemed to move on their own. George, a man of few words but with a keen mind, nodded slowly. He had always been a thinker, someone who pondered deeply before speaking, and this situation required all his mental faculties. He too had sensed a shift in the atmosphere of Maple Street, a growing unease that seemed to emanate from Evelyn's house. The once vibrant street now felt cloaked in a shroud of mystery and tension. George had always been drawn to the mysteries of the past. His home was filled with antiques and old books, each item a piece of history that he cherished. He possessed an old soul, some whispered, and his knowledge of Maple Street's history ran deep. He knew the stories of the families who had lived there, the joys and sorrows that had unfolded over the years. He had a knack for remembering things others had forgotten, old stories, forgotten tragedies, and whispers of secrets buried deep. His mind was a treasure trove of the past, and he often found solace in its depths. "Some things," George said finally, his voice low and steady, "are best left undisturbed, Evelyn." He knew that delving into the past could sometimes awaken things better left forgotten. But some things need to be set right. There was a determination in his eyes, a resolve to help Evelyn find peace. He promised to help Evelyn unravel the mystery of the music box. Together they would face whatever secrets it held. Little did he know that his own past was about to intertwine with the secrets of Maple Street in ways he could never have imagined. The journey ahead would reveal truths that had long been buried, changing their lives forever.